Live. We're live this time.
Finally.
You have no idea what we just endured to get to this point of actually being live. We were going live for 22 minutes and 13 seconds.
The technology gods are chuckling right now.
That was not good. But here we are.
We are.
Episode 6.
And who are we? For the people that are just have
Tuning
no
in for the
idea
first
who
time,
we are.
We are the Inglorious Pastords with an O, like the word pastors, because we're ex-pastors, not pasturds, which we've seen online.
As in T-U-R-D-S?
Well, I've seen the T-E. I've seen tards at A-R-D-S, and I've seen turds as in E-R-D-S. No one's taken the U-R-D-S yet.
Yep.
Maybe we should have.
We are who we are. I'm Roger.
Welcome to Dumb and Dumber. I'm dumb.
How are you?
I just love that line.
No, you said
that's such a good line.
You said you were going to stop the Dumb and Dumber.
All right. I'm Bruce.
And we are the Inglorious Pastords for another episode in season 4.
Got a lot of feedback on the meekness issue.
All right. I saw in the comment section that we may have ruled out a Seinfeld rerun.
Wow. Struggling to talk today. I'll have some smotch.
A little too early.
Well, yes, someone, instead of watching a Seinfeld rerun, came to Inglorious Pastords and said, it's 50-50. I said, go with Seinfeld. Run, don't walk. But they listened and they were encouraged. And I'm thinking I may even preach on that this Sunday. Yes, that's right. One of the Inglorious Pastords has taken up preaching again. You know, after going all of last year, 2020, and all of this year without preaching a single time on a Sunday morning. Boom. Going to do it this week. And I'm thinking, meekness is the word that you heard. It's got groove. It's got meaning. Where does that stuff come from?
Greece.
It's Greece. That's right. Greece is the time, is the place, is the motion. Greece is the way that you're feeling
right now.
Nope, that's not in there. That's not in it.
It's what I'm feeling.
The dance is not
right
in
now.
it, and the lyric is not in it.
Don't ever do that again.
So if you'd like to give me input for my talk this week, just do that right here on Facebook, or go to our, do we have a Pastords page in the podcast world? I don't know how podcast world works, frankly. That's why, because you handle all that.
So on the podcast side, yeah, I mean, we could probably add notes, but I don't know that's so much a website. It's just...
Did we get the big deal with Spotify? I know they approached us about a 7-figure offer.
The 7 figures is a term I'm not familiar with, but they did mention sponsorship, but I understand that could be a sinking ship.
Well, it has a lot to do. The 7 figures has a lot to do with where the decimal place is.
Right. And this one,
the decimal starts.
There's a decimal and a number of zeros
following
before we get to.
I never thought about that. If you had 7 zeros, it's still 7 figures.
True. We
got a 7-figure offer from Spotify. 000 000 0.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, by the way, just thinking news, but see about Tiger Woods?
Yeah, I read about it this morning. Car accident.
Yeah.
Yikes. After just having another back surgery, like number 5.
My gut is I'm not sure we're going to see him professionally play golf again.
You know, he just tied, 2019, tied the record of Sam Snead for 82 wins. But 83 would put him the all-time ever.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I don't know that he can win it. I mean, that's a lot of, they've got a rod in his leg now.
I heard it crushed an ankle. I mean, when they're using words like crushed, that's
not good.
So yeah, I hate that because it's been so much fun following him through the years and just seeing the possibility of what. But boy, my gut tells me, this may be the end of the ride.
But everyone's thought that at different times. And he's 45,
right?
So it's a whole lot harder to come back from injuries at 45
that's the thing. At 45
than 25.
And it's multiple. I mean, you could make the case, was he going to come back again this time from back surgery? Now, I'm going to tell you, if he comes back from this and wins another tournament, that's a Tom Brady thing. That's like, it's not likely to happen.
So I saw, how certain stats put things in perspective. I saw one yesterday that I hadn't seen. It's interesting. It said Tom Brady has now won 12.7% of all Super Bowls.
Oh gosh.
Think how crazy that is.
Okay.
Of all the Super Bowls ever, he's won 12.7% of them.
Wow. Okay.
So I think greatest of all time is pretty much a lock there.
Yep.
Can you imagine anyone? I mean, it's always possible. Records are made to be broken. But can you imagine anyone else ever winning 7 Super Bowls going forward? It's just hard to.
Well, let's go back. A quarterback being in. I'm talking about, can you imagine a quarterback? It's hard to get to a Super Bowl. I mean, it is extremely hard.
Here's what I just thought for poor Aaron Rodgers. The road to the Super Bowl goes to Tampa Bay now.
Right.
I mean, he at least could get there.
Right.
Because it was the.
Right.
But now, nope. It's going to be tougher for him to even get there.
Yep.
Because of stupid Tom Brady.
Well, that's what was so tough for Ben Roethlisberger.
Right. On the AFC
Phillip
side.
Rivers. Yes. Even
the kid.
Peyton Manning.
Oh, yeah.
On that side.
Right. Colts and
there
Broncos.
Were multiple times.
It's amazing. He won 2.
Yeah.
And got there twice.
Right.
Those are some of our favorite games to watch. The AFC Championships, right. Patriots, Broncos.
But you look at a Brady who's been to 10.
That's just nuts.
Who's been to 10, started.
So he's been to like
10,
almost 20% of them and won almost 13% of them.
Yeah.
That's just nuts.
It's crazy.
I mean, if the Super Bowl was 20 years old, that would be one thing. But this goes back a ways.
Yeah.
So
speaking of sports, I had a question for you.
That was a great segue. No, I mean, anytime you want to segue, just say, speaking of, fill in the blank.
Right.
Doesn't actually matter what you're saying for. Speaking of mom and dad. Okay.
It helped that we had been talking about sports, but
this is the segue episode. I can see how this is going.
One of the worst referee or umpire calls you've ever seen in a sports event.
Me?
Yes, I'm wondering.
Okay, so the worst one I can remember was that
this involved the Denver Broncos.
Nope, it was the New Orleans Saints. He threw a pass. The guy was literally tackled.
Was it the AFC? Was that the
championship
or the
NFC championship?
NFC championship.
Championship game. They didn't go to the Super Bowl because of that call.
And the guy got tackled before the ball ever got there.
I mean, it's just, and wasn't. It's not like it was uncatchable or anything else. He was literally tackled, and the guy who tackled him, understandably, because it's a touchdown.
Right.
So he did what he had to do, and got nothing. It's actually now that's a no call. Interestingly enough.
Right.
It's not the worst call.
Right.
It's the worst not called.
Okay.
Which that's so interesting because I was just thinking this morning about what Jesus preached more often. Things not to do in terms of sin, or the sins of not doing the things we should.
Yeah. Yeah.
The no calls.
Yep.
We're worried about not doing certain things. But anyway, all that to say, so what do you think is the worst?
Well,
did you see it yesterday in a sports event?
I don't do well with the worst. I always think of one, but there's one that comes to my mind is, and this was over 10 years ago, baseball game. And so, you get the 7th inning, pitcher's throwing a no-hitter. I wish I could remember it was a perfect game, but I think it was just no-hitter. No-hitter, 8th inning, no-hitter, 9th inning, and of course now there's the buzz and no one's talking to the pitcher anymore. And
no one's talking to the pitcher.
Oh yeah, they don't.
You just stay out of the zone.
Yeah, you don't.
Mannequin man, here he comes.
Right. Don't, no eye contact. So 9th inning, first batter out, second batter out, third batter hits a chopper, I think to second base, but it's deep second or short. The throw goes to first. Bang, bang play. Safe. But the replay showed that the guy was clearly out.
So we lost a no-hitter.
So afterward, was it Angel Hernandez? The umpire who made that call was almost in tears. He said, I cost that kid a no-hitter. Because you could see he
Right.
missed the call.
Do they do instant replay in baseball now?
Yes, they do some form of it
Goes back to that call.
that could have, I think, made a difference there. But I don't watch baseball as much. I used to watch that somewhat more. But it's just
I don't watch baseball. Don't watch basketball. I watch golf and football. That's about it.
So that was my lead-in. Last week you had a word study for us, which actually was really good. So the pressure's on. I was thinking
Roger's going to do a word study today.
No, a phrase study. I'm going to top your little word study, a phrase study.
Very excited.
From the most quoted verse in the Bible.
John 3:16.
No. Judge not that you be not judged.
I was close. Close second.
No, it depends.
But John 3:16 makes more signs at football games.
Yes. Judge not that you be not judged.
You actually said, you said most often quoted, not most often put on a sign, or even most familiar to people.
I might have said yes, most popular.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about that word judge.
Yeah.
And then that phrase. So I thought maybe we could once and for all determine what that means. Judge not that you be not judged. Now the complicating fact.
But with the measure that you use, it'll be measured to you.
Right.
Yeah.
So the complicating thing, or at least to add to the intrigue, is that Jesus would say other things using the word judge in other places. For instance, he told one guy, he said, "You have judged correctly." Well, we're not supposed to judge.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking some judging is good, some judging is bad. And the pastors are going to help people determine which are the bad judges and which is the good judging.
So join us next week after Bruce does a little bit of research so that we can actually do this thing. No, I've been studying this one too. This is something that John Tanner and I talked about several weeks ago over lunch. We've lost the ability to discern in our culture. And a lot of people quote this, "Don't judge," as though we're not supposed to make any discernments about anything. And I'm curious to know what your take is on all of that. But the judging that can be, that when I've done a word study before on that passage, a lot of ways that judge can be used there to discern, to distinguish between. But one is to pronounce judgment, to condemn.
Yep.
It's the judge, jury, all in one thing. And Jesus, he was saying, don't condemn.
Right.
Lest you be condemned.
Yeah. So I was thinking about that.
I think we're done. I think I wrapped it up for everybody. Thanks for joining us.
I think that I might be able to add some color commentary.
Oh, you got something more to add to that. Okay.
To our sports broadcast.
Well, last week you were so quiet.
Well, normally I'm just the chuckle track.
I don't know why we do that.
Now we're not going to be able to get it back.
Right. Go to your color commentary on judging.
Right. So yes, repeatedly there are Bible instructions and Jesus' word, judge for yourselves. So this idea, So for me, I've thought about judge with different analogies. So one kind of judge is a line judge. It's a referee. In other words, they are judging to see if something is right or wrong. They're judging to see if it's, and we are called to determine whether something is right or wrong. We're called to make discernments.
In bounds or out of bounds. Okay.
Now, what's interesting to me, there's a couple of things that are interesting about that. First of all, that judge or that line is never making a call on his own. He's not making up a rule. He's not just in the middle. Can you imagine if
you're making up the rules?
Right.
But my foot's inside the line. Yep, that's out now. Well, how can that be out? Because I said so.
No, I'm sorry. You took 4 steps before you entered the end zone, and that results in an automatic fumble.
Fumble. That's great. Oh,
No,
we lost the game because of an automatic fumble. Stupid Roger took 4 steps going into the end zone.
So, but
I've never heard of that rule. That's because I just made it up.
The point is, and this is where even for us, we're using a guideline. We're using a standard.
Right.
In other words, we're not making up. So when I'm talking about
Yes.
whether something's right or wrong, I'm never simply appealing on, oh, this is my opinion. I'm looking and saying, now from what I see in God's standard, I can make a call on something. So I'm called to make discernment.
Yeah.
Now, what's fascinating to me is, and it's the one thing I find fascinating about golf, since we have sports going on here as well. The scripture will say, judge yourself.
Yeah. Call the foul on yourself.
Call.
No other sport does that.
No, I
Can
can
you imagine? Nope. Take the basket back. I charged him.
No.
I charged. It's on me. No. Take the points off the board.
No. Think about it. Even a football player,
Yeah.
whatever. No, I actually did fumble it. I did,
Yeah.
a bit. It left my hand before my knee. But in golf, yeah,
And-
I grounded the club in the hazard.
And if a person calls a foul on himself, another person can't undo it.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't think you did that. So
Right.
no, I did. So it's a 2-stroke penalty.
Right.
It's interesting. Yeah.
No, but that is consistent. What's fascinating there is golf in that sense is like what God calls us to.
Right.
First, judge yourself. And isn't even that the word, pull the splinter out of your own eye
Right.
before, then you'll be able to see clearly. In other words, judge not. The judging we're supposed to do, first of all, starts with, am I in bounds? Is the way that I'm living, does it fit God's heart and standard? Does it not? That's the first judgment. So one kind of judgment, I'm supposed to call fouls on myself.
Yep.
But then there is this place to discern for somebody else. You're making a judgment about whether something is right or wrong, whether something in that sense then is harmful. So I see, like in Galatians, if a brother is overtaken in a fault, in a sin, go restore him. But you have to make that discernment. It's the discernment. It's a discernment a doctor makes.
Versus saying, well, who am I to judge?
Right.
Well, he's sleeping with someone else's wife. I think we need to say, hey, I love you, but this has got to stop.
Right. And I want a medical. We have to make a judgment. I want to get a judgment from a medical professional. They might say that spot on your arm really, really concerns me. Well, if they see something, I want them to say something.
Right. Not only that, but think about this. So discernment, which is what we're talking about right now, is different than pronouncing judgment in the sense of, all right, and because of this thing that I discerned you did wrong, here's the consequence. Here's payment for that. Here's the penalty.
Yes.
For that thing. Or here's why you did it.
Yeah.
In other words, it's one thing to discern a person did the wrong thing. It would be terribly wrong for us to assume that we know why he or she did that.
Right.
And even to the point of pronouncing judgment, condemning the person. All right, here's the consequence of that. This is where I think we get into a lot of trouble. But this is what the disciples struggled with. They go through the Samaritan village. The people did not respond to Jesus' teaching. James and John said, do you want us to call down judgment from heaven? And Jesus said, no, this is where that word is used. I didn't come to condemn the world, but to save the world.
Yeah.
So again, that same word used over and over again in different kind of contexts, but they were ready to bring final judgment.
Right.
Kind of fire from heaven,
Yeah.
or at least final judgment in this human life.
Yeah.
Here's another question about judging, because it's the second part of that verse that I'm fascinated by. Judge not lest you be judged, or in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. Is Jesus saying you'll be judged by other people the same way that you judge, or is he saying you'll be judged by God in the way that you judge, or is it both? This is the definitive word from Roger on a pressing question that I've had for years. Roger, it's all yours.
Well, it seems to me that if you're judging someone in a way that's inappropriate, well, part of it is Okay, the words
Roger seems stumped.
Well, there are layers to that. I think one of the things is it's fascinating to think about that because I found myself judging others in ways I wouldn't judge myself.
Okay.
So in other words, I'll give someone a break. I'll give myself a break. I do a thing
because motivation.
Right. And or whether I do or not, I'll give myself a break. I'll give myself a pass. You said rightly, one kind of judgment that's a mistake is when I judge the motive. I'm not God. I can't see your heart.
Right.
But all the time, when I see you do a thing, there's a part of me that automatically thinks about why you did it. So, well, I'm not in a position, I'm not called. So if the measure you're going to, I think what he's calling is think very carefully. Do you want to be judged the same way that you're judging that person? Or do you give yourself a break? Do you give yourself mercy? Do you want mercy from God?
Mercy triumphs
or do you want
judgment?
You're giving that person judgment rather than mercy. Right. Do you want that from God?
Mm-hmm. And do you want that from others? I've wrestled with that for years. I feel like it's a both thing. Well, I don't know exactly the tense that Jesus was using that in, but I think it's a both thing. If you become a person that judges others, other people are very likely going to judge you by that same measure.
Yes.
In other words, even if you call out someone for missing, they didn't catch the pass in the end zone, and then you drop one the next week, there's probably going to be some piling on.
It's funny because I've thought about this phrase. It sounds a little karma-ish. In other words,
it does.
But I think there is a point, if we think about a proverb, a general truth is what you tend to give to people, you get back.
Mm-hmm.
And if you judge people's motives, you're going to tend to have people.
A man reaps what he sows.
Judgment. You reap what you sow.
Right. In Scripture. Right.
Right. So anyway, so I think that's a reality that's going on there. Be very, very careful because God is seeing how you're judging this person, how you're, and again, whether you're giving mercy or not, how do you want to, anyway.
So when is the right time to make a discernment and make a statement about something as a right or wrong based on what you understand from the heart of God? I ask this from the standpoint that Roger and I are both teachers. And so before we even teach anything, we're wanting to, in our own heart, is this right or wrong? Is this the heart of God? We recognize that we're all partly wrong. So there's nothing that we totally get right every time. But I feel sometimes I'm like, I want to say something about this or I want to blog something about this, but I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure I've got the heart of God on it either. And so sometimes I don't say anything.
Well,
but then I feel bad because I'm like, I needed to have spoken into that, but I didn't want to judge.
So I think one of the things that's been helpful for me, and it's part of the fun we've had even here, when I think about the word judge, I think of different images, and we've used several today. We've used the image of a judge as a referee.
Yep.
Okay, that's one kind of judging, and there's a place for that.
Yep.
We've used the image of judge as a courtroom judge.
On a bench, yes,
with a robe. Who makes the final verdict. They actually, right, they issue
judgment.
They make they're not, they're the punishment. They're not, a jury may determine guilt, but they are actually.
It's interesting you say that because that is a certain kind of judgment. The jury determined guilt. The judge may have thought guilty, not guilty. Right. But he or she alone is now going to pronounce the consequence for that.
Right. We're not in the place and don't want to be. So one thing is, okay, you don't want to be there.
One thing is the line judge. In that sense, the jury is working as the line judge. Do we believe that the ball was hit out of bounds or in bounds?
And they're asked even by that judge.
Yep.
Here's the standard you're using. It's again, you're not just independently deciding.
Right. There's precedent.
Right. You need to respond to this. You're not allowed to bring this into evidence or whatever. So the guidelines, but they're not just randomly deciding independently. So yes, there's a kind of judgment. The image that comes to my mind that we've also talked about, but I think it reflects your question is a medical professional. Um, a medical professional is someone. Here's the thing. You and I know people that come to us and they're just looking to find something wrong. Some people actually, that's my gift. I'm good. And it has nothing to do with love. Actually, it has something to do with arrogance. It may have something to do with a sense of superiority.
Yep.
And so we're nervous or concerned about that. But if I use the image of a doctor, and what you said is striking to me, doctors know they don't know everything. And I know, I've seen in the face of a doctor, we're not sure.
I've seen that.
So
I've seen that face.
So do I say nothing because I'm not sure?
Yeah, that would be bad.
No, I want the doctor.
Yep.
I want the doctor to make a discernment. Another fascinating thing that's even in the scriptures is if someone's made a discernment, there's the idea, we'll call someone else in the church, another witness, another person to kind of listen, and you're getting a second.
It's the second opinion.
Second opinion.
A second discernment.
Second discernment, because you want the discernment to be right. Here's the thing. I may see a spot on someone that looks a little, it's fascinating me. I wish I could remember the story. It just came to my mind. There was someone who was watching a video of someone, and they did a kind of close up of the person, and this person who was a doctor noticed something about that person's eye that was a concern. He was able to contact that person. Well, it turns out there was a very serious issue. The person saw it, contacted, was able, I don't know if it was cancer, it was something.
Yeah.
Well, do I want someone to do that for me?
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. If someone's coming to me out of love, a doctor, I expect a doctor didn't get in the profession. I just want to find out what's wrong with people. I really
Watch
just
this.
The medical profession. I want to sit down with people and tell them they have cancer. I want to. No, people are going the medical profession, or people are saying, I want to help save lives. I want to help catch things before.
And even the line judge, is typically out there. Watch this. I can't wait to call this in.
Right.
They want to make the game enjoyable for everybody.
Exactly. This is what makes and that's one of these side things. Actually, is a game with no rules
is no fun.
You'd stop watching at a point. In fact,
you wouldn't play it.
No,
because it's
right.
If there's no rules, you can't actually win or lose or imitate.
Right. And if people, we talk about in a game, we'll play, family football or whatever, but you realize if people could simply just make up their own rules, like we're talking about, then at some point, we actually talk about the seminars. You're making up rules as you go. Well, it ruins the game. If someone says after the fact, oh, this was a rule. Oh, we're going to play it this way. We're going to play two-hand touch, but we were tackling. But
I touched with two hands and that counts now. Well, I was thinking about, because I think in words, and so I'm like, we have discernment, we have diagnosis, but we don't have declaration in the sense of the declaration of this person is even so many people right now. I'm listening to different people on videos and on podcasts that are declaring people saved or unsaved.
Yes.
Listen, based on a political position.
So
it's this declaration, and I realize I'm not the judge of the living and the dead. That's a whole different thing. But the other thing is this declaration of motive. You did that because you're whatever that thing is. In other words, even if let's say a person pulls out in front of me and I have the right of way and I can make a discernment that they were legally out of bounds for pulling in front of me, and I might decide they did that because they're selfish and that whatever. And it turned out they had a child that was rushed to the hospital that had been in an accident. And they're trying to get there.
Yeah.
When we declare motive, we have no idea why the person did. We might even be able to discern that was out of bounds.
Right.
I had the right of way. But
what's even interesting there is I think even on that question of motive, even in a courtroom, we understand that motive actually is a pretty big deal.
It is a big deal
in a court case. But how do you determine it? It's not. There has to be evidence. So you can, if someone wrote a letter, or we have on video this person saying, I want to do this.
Here's why I did
this. This is why where you can, but motive can't simply be
But it can't be assumed.
It cannot be assumed. There has to be, you can make a discernment about motive. And that's what I realized. The only time I can ever make a discernment about motive is if someone has clearly said something, because even God will say, again, as a matter of a health professional, if I see someone who's done something with the wrong motive, again, this isn't me trying to nitpick. It's, oh, listen, that's something broken. If someone tells me their motive and I realize, oh, that motive might not be good for you, I want to be that friend who can say,
yeah.
And those moments are rare, but if someone tells me something, if someone tells me their motive, then I'm in a position to say, listen, going back to God, this isn't Roger deciding, but God says warning about that. Be careful.
Because if your motive is revenge, that is against the way of Christ.
Right.
That says don't repay evil for evil.
Now, what's fascinating in all of this, so we've talked about...
We have to make discernments. There's times where we have to need to make a diagnosis, or we want a diagnosis.
Right.
Even if it's possibly wrong. That's the thing I'm wrestling with right now, because that's something that's big.
But here's the thing. And I've done this before. Now, this is when I go to talk to someone about about a problem that I perceive, yes. I'm much more likely to say, listen, I may be missing something here.
I'm no doctor, but I see this thing that I'm concerned about.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, the more mature we get, it seems to me we want people to speak that into our lives.
Yes.
Even if I sit down, Roger brings something to my attention he's concerned about, I think about it, I wrestle with it, I might still come back and go, I don't think there's any problem with that. I don't. But it's important that we had that discussion.
Those are good. Yes.
Nor do I feel bad for Roger. Who should Roger think I am? Blah, 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 blah. Now, if Roger comes in and says, I know what you did, why you did it.
Right.
Well, I'm immediately pretty defensive.
Right. And I'm going to shun you out of my life. I'm going to make a judgment. I'm going to cut you off because I don't want to be around someone like, well, now these are all things.
So I can make decisions for myself. I can make discernments about other things. It's that even what Paul said, that would be like, he's able to say that would be wrong for me. I mean, Paul talks about this thing on disputable matters. That's an interesting other D word. Mm-hmm. But where a person shouldn't do anything that offends their faith or their sense of conviction about something.
Right.
I might look at it and go, gosh, that's no big deal. But Paul even references that when he says one person can go do this and no problem.
Yeah.
Another person does it and they are conscience stricken. He said, well, don't offend your conscience in that sense.
And it's why we can go and it's why the conversations are so important. It's the whole approach. Here's the thing. I'm never thrilled with someone who says, whenever you have someone says, there's something we need to talk about.
Oh, my stomach gets tight immediately.
Right. I'm not looking forward to that conversation. But depending who says it to me, there's certain people I know that love me.
Yes.
And when they say that, it's a whole different thing than that person who is a sin finder. They've just got some kind of radar and they're just always, I'm sensing sin around. I'm sensing, and they're a critic. They're harsh. They're actually just find a certain joy in, okay, well, if that person says there's something we need, but of course, that's rarely the way they're even going to say it. But when I know the person coming up, for me, that's more like talking to a doctor. And by the way, like my wife, Joyce, will tell you, she still never likes to go to the doctor. Never likes to go to the doctor. She does it because there's always the possibility of getting bad news, but she knows the doctor is for her. That's
right.
It's, in other words, I'm saying, so even when I know someone loves me, if you say to me, hey, I think there's something we need to talk about, Raj, is there some time, I know right off the bat, you are for me. You are a doctor. You're somebody that I trust. You're somebody that I know loves me. I loved what you said. You can share it with me. We can talk about it. And I can say, yeah, I'm not sure. Or I can explain a little bit more. Yeah, here's a little bit more of the story.
And isn't that in essence what Jesus was trying to get to with it wasn't saying, I used to teach this as levels of guilt. one person, you try to make it right, it doesn't, so you get another person so that everything can be judged by 2 or 3 witnesses.
Right.
If you can't
To
do
prove
that,
the
if you can't do that, you take it to the congregation. But the idea is, Jesus is saying there needs to be, we're trying to find consensus on whether this really is a problem. Because there's times that I take offense at something.
Yeah.
And if I bring a couple of other people involved, they're like, yeah, Bruce, that's really not a big deal.
Yeah.
And you're going way over the top with that.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be offended by that. Or they might say, yeah, that's a serious concern. And the other person can say, okay, I see that now. But if that person doesn't, it's almost like we're expanding it, not from a real low. Now we're going to really hammer him, shut him from the whole congregation. Yeah. This idea of getting a gathering of people to say, do we believe that this is a problem or not?
Yeah.
And hasn't that happened all throughout history?
Yeah.
I mean, in the best sense, people get together and go, is this a problem or not? Not just about people, but about things, issues, cultural things.
And there's this call into community to help figure out good. There's call to...
That's it, yes. It's a call to community. We're looking at it as the reason to shun.
Right.
But it's actually a call to community.
We're trying to get the final proof or...
the verdict.
And here's the other side of that that's intriguing. Because I know I've had a couple times with you, you've come to talk to me about something that was burdening you. And I said, I think you're overreacting. I think, in other words, I'm not sure you're making an accurate judgment about yourself. Again, I can go both ways. I can say you're underselling, but I can also say, you know what? I think you're being too hard on yourself. Yeah. I think you're putting a standard on you. Actually, I don't think that's God's standard. I don't think that's actually... And so then again, in community, it's why when we talk about that phrase, judge, jury, execution, we're the whole deal. We're going to decide the whole. Well, that's always a dangerous thing. That's always a not good thing.
And I think it'd be jury, judge, executioner. We've said it wrong for years.
Right. Probably so.
Prosecuting attorney, jury, judge, executioner. There you go.
So we've got a doctor. There's one kind of judge. Good. We would say there's an umpire, a referee, does some kind of judging. It's good, provided that they're not using their own standard. We've talked about a courtroom judge who makes the final verdict and judgment. And I always think about
even consequence for
that. And I think that's actually what Paul means in Romans 14 when he says, to his own master he stands or falls. To his own, you're never the final judge.
No.
The final judge,
not the judge of the living and the dead.
Right. The final judge is God. Don't take that role. There is one other kind of judge that I've done, another kind of judge that we are not supposed to do. You know what it is?
Is this the car mechanic illustration? Because I've made poor judgments there many times.
So I'm thinking about a contest judge. So we have this term, a judge. So you spoke at
something that's entirely subjective with no real guideline.
Well, stay with me. So I know you've won awards. What's an award where someone had to make? I mean, I think like the Olympics. Literally hold up a number. But have you?
I've won awards. Yeah, got one over here for you, Rob. You love this one.
Oh! I can't wait. Oh, you're bringing 2 of them.
2 awards. So
2 awards.
We're in my office, so I can do this. This was one. See that? I don't even know where there it is, right there. Yeah, I came in 3rd place in a running race that was very objective in the sense of there's a finish line and there's timing and.
Right, so that misses the point entirely.
Okay, but this one was completely subjective.
This would have fit.
This was my Mount Hermon True Grit Award because I looked like John Wayne. I
think it's your gravelly voice.
I can actually say I'm an award-winning author because of this little guy right here. Mount Hermon gave me an award. Not for my book, not for my writing, for my grit.
You are the grittiest person I know.
Thank you, Raj. I feel gritty.
So, but like the Olympics, or a chili cook-off, whatever. What are they judging?
what they like.
But they're judging which is better. So you're at a state fair, whatever. We're going to judge the best. So we're going to rank.
I've not been doing well with Roger's questions. I wish he would just say what he's thinking.
So they'll judge. This is the first place chili.
Yep.
This is the second place chili. This is the third place chili. And this is the chili you have no business eating.
And I've won first place chili twice. And my wings, oh my gosh, I can't tell you how many times I've got first place with wings.
Right. But
which is better.
Not called to be contest judges. It's interesting.
Unless it's for ourselves only.
Well, what I mean is it's the idea of a contest judge is determining which is superior, which athlete, which pie,
got it,
which chili,
got it, yes,
is superior. So I think back to James chapter 2, where James says, "You have become judges with evil thoughts." There were wealthy people in the church, and there were poor people in the church, and they had a different seating section for the poor. They had, and he said, "You've become judges with evil thoughts." What? They were ranking people.
Yeah, better or worse, inferior, superior.
And what's sobering is I realize I have a contest judge hat on all the time without even thinking about it. It's just in everyday conversations and everyday interactions without thinking, I will have a kind of a placement thing going on. And this thing that God calls us to fight anytime we see ourselves as better than or see someone less than for whatever they've done, that they're less than me, then you've become judges with evil thoughts. And that particular kind of judging is I've put someone at a different level. I've put someone at a lower level that I am. So I think this is one, that's a judge. It's fine for chili. It's fine for the Olympics. But it's not fine for relationships. We're not called to rank people, but it happens all the time.
Can you imagine? I was just thinking hitting the mirror with our wives. Our wife cooks a meal. Yeah, that's a solid 6. Hold up a card. It's a 6. It's not going to be good. I mean, unless you're holding up 10 every time, and then that's going to backfire because she even knows that wasn't a 10.
No. It's what's even worse. Let's say you're at a potluck. And she brought a dish, and everybody else brought a dish, and you're ranking everyone's dish. You give hers a 6, and you give
Monica gets a 9.
Monica gets a 9.5.
It's going to be problematic.
Well, things may not go well on the home front that night.
One last word on judging. Where I was going with the better thing is sometimes I have to be willing to make a judgment about what is better. In other words, this is okay to do. This is moral to do. This is okay to do. This would even be good to do. And sometimes I just want to go with that because it's the easiest thing to do. But sometimes I need to be making a judgment for myself, not for others, but for myself. But is there something better that I can do here? In other words, it's going beyond. It's one thing not to retaliate when someone does something to you.
Right.
Okay, that's good. But Jesus doesn't give us, he says, but I want you to go further than that. I want you to do good to that person who just did you bad. So it's good not to retaliate. Jesus says, don't repay evil for evil, but he doesn't leave it there. He said, there is a better. I want you to actually do something good for that person. So I realize at this age and stage of my life, I'm not just asking, is this immoral or unethical? I'm asking, is it better?
Yeah.
Is there a better thing I can do? And that's even with words that I use. I might say this, hey, it's not wrong. In fact, in my own heart, I know anytime I'm arguing, it's not wrong for me to do this or that. Right. I probably need to look at better. I need to make a judgment about, is there something that's going to be better in this moment?
No, and that's a great word. I'm glad you mentioned that because...
Well, that's why it's the Pastords, not one. Pastord.
And
you're glad I mentioned it. Keep going with that.
Coming along to help you.
Yes, I wanted you to finish that.
No, but
sounded good for me.
Oh, where did I lost my train of thought.
Toya told me not to do this to Roger. She said, you get him off track, Bruce. I'm sorry. You're right.
No, it's okay. What did you just say? Now I'm my brain
about not just is it wrong, but is it better?
Good. So because I think growing up, and maybe kids just gravitate this, when you're younger, I just got to figure out what's right or wrong, and that's the only question.
That's it, right?
And at some point, a number of years back, I realized God doesn't just want us to ask the question, is right or wrong. For the longest, I thought that's all God was interested. Is it right or wrong? But when Paul brings up the weaker brother or the weaker that might struggle, whoever that is, and by the way, if you're trying to decide which is the weaker and which is the stronger, you're getting into that judgment thing again. The bottom line is when you're dealing with someone and you're having a disagreement, whatever, you're trying to think not just what's right and wrong here, but what's good for that person. I can do something. Paul says you can do something that you have freedom to do.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be wrong to do it, but how might that affect this person if you do that? So there are points where I will choose not to do a thing when I'm actually following the way of Jesus. There's sometimes I've stopped doing something. I've not done something that I had freedom to do. Yeah. Wouldn't be right or wrong, but I realized it wasn't loving for somebody else because this was going to create this conflict or this was going to create and that's why the question, we never simply ask, is it right? Is it wrong? Because I guess warning sign when you say,
and even truncate that a little more. It's never best to ask the question, is it wrong? Because is it right? It's a little bit of a different question, but is it wrong? Because I'm very good with words in my own mind. I can come up with 100 reasons why it's not like technically wrong. Right. You know this because you grew up with me as a kid. Right. Mom and Dad said you can have one bowl of the Fruit Loops in the morning, but no more. And so I was famously known for taking the giant
serving bowl,
4-gallon mixing bowl, loading that up with all the Fruit Loops, and technically
a gallon of milk.
It wasn't wrong because I only had one bowl of Fruit Loops before everyone else got up. My siblings hated me. They made judgments.
I admired your genius. I did have moments where I thought, gee, I wish I had thought of that.
How does Bruce do that?
Some of my best conniving, you taught me. So I learned a lot at your feet.
And with that, we wrap up the Pastords for this episode 6, where we've judged correctly.
We've taught you how to judge correctly, and we're expecting...
By the way, can you tell we've got a light right here? Right there. See that? You're getting more light on the Pastor's face. I told Roger it could be the Shekinah Glory edition.
I'm not comfortable with that.
Roger's not. He's not comfortable with that at all.
One final laugh track from Roger.
But it was a nervous chuckle. I've got to admit. Oh, good times.
See you guys next time.
All right.